Welcome to another edition of the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com. I'm Tom Leach, along with Jim Goodman, Keeneland's director of Simulcasting, and it'll be a busy place, the Keeneland Simulcasting on Saturday for Breeders' Cup Day. We're going to take a look at, in this podcast, the first 5 races on the card. Then we'll have a second podcast that looks at the late pick 4. So, Jim, we're going to start with the 4th race on the card at Santa Anita on Saturday, which is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, mile and a 16th on the dirt. And where did you go?
I went with Artemis Agritera, the horse coming out of Belmont. I thought the Frisette was extremely impressive. Showed a lot of guts down the stretch, and I think this filly for Michael Hushin ships to the West Coast and takes the money in the Juvenile Fillies. I also like Secret Compass, who's really training well for Bob Baffert. It seemed like every race that we look at here, Baffert's going to have a live horse, and this is no exception. She won the Chandelier out at Santa Anita, so got a great prep race. That's the first time on dirt, and she looked very impressive at 10-1. I also used She's a Tiger, and Untappable was kind of a long shot in here for me with coming out of Churchill, 2-2 there. Won the Grade 2 Pocahontas last out, and I think that Asmussen, 5-1 on the morning line, that might be a good price on that horse. I think that she's got a real shot, but I'm going to take Artemis Agritera on top.
Started to pick Untappable, and I ended up coming to Concave. Looked at the pedigree of this horse, should absolutely love 2 turns. And I was listening to an interview with Doug O'Neill, and a horse had some issues with a cold, got some mucus, and had to be off for a little while, missed a race coming up to this, so they just trained her up to this. And I'm just going to take a shot on pedigree, and the price is attractive here. So Concave, for me, I like Untappable because of the 2-turn experience, which a lot of horses in here don't have. She's a Tiger. I think should run well off that first time around 2 turns. And Rosalind, I think, is an interesting price play. I couldn't find my way to pick her to win it, but she get a Rosario, and I think he'll be a good fit for her. And she's also had 2-turn experience. And you've got the angle with no Lasix in here for these 2-year-olds, and she has run well with that Lasix in the past. So Concave is my pick, and I'm going to use her with all the other ones that I mentioned there in the Juvenile Fillies. And this starts an early pick 4, and I would use Concave, Untappable, She's a Tiger, probably in my early pick 4. 5th race is the Filly and Mare Turf, and I think it's one of the 2 Europeans, and I'm going to take the higher price, Romantica. She's a Group 1 winner. It's going to be the better price. And I have heard that Andre Fabre is coming over, and usually that's a good sign when sometimes he ships horses over but doesn't come with them, and those don't usually do well, I've found. But this one, I think, is sitting on a nice race. She's out of Banks Hill, who was one of the favorites for these connections. So I'm going to take her to upset Dank, and Marketing Mix would be the other one I like. What about you?
I took the shorter price of Europeans. I went back and watched the Dank race at Beverly D at Arlington. I saw that. I was sitting at Del Mar watching the Arlington Million card, and extremely impressive, and even more so when I watched it back, because I tried to isolate on the move, and she just accelerated and moved off from those horses like they were standing still. I'm going to give her the edge simply because she has a race in the United States and Romantica doesn't. I would use Romantica below her, along with Tis Flirtatious, Marketing Mix, and the other 2 that I thought had a shot in here. I don't know which emollient will show up, but if the emollient that shows up that ran on the Spinster at Keeneland, she's got a shot because maybe she's just better on Polly. I don't know, because the 2 best races that she's ever run are the Ashland and Spinster right here at Keeneland. If she does show up, I think she's got a shot at a price, and Mike Smith is a great shot for Belmont. So I think Emollient has an outside shot, and Kitten's Dumplings closed on the outside to get the QE2 Cup here at Keeneland. So I'm going to have a sentimental bet on Kitten's Dumplings for Ramsey, but I think Dank is the single in the early pick 4.
Race 6 is the Filly and Mare Sprint. Groupie Doll is the defending champion with the Kentucky connections, and I don't think she's as good as she was last year, but Buff Bradley, her trainer, would certainly know better than I, and he's saying that she is. Where did you go here?
I would expect Buff to say that, and I hope she is. Obviously, Groupie Doll is going to sell here the week after Breeders' Cup. That's a November sale at Keeneland, so we certainly have a rooting interest in this race. But with my money, I'm going to take a shot here on Dance Card. My favorite Jock Joel Rosario is back in the saddle now, and McLaughlin ships this horse to Santa Anita off a kind of disappointing run in the Gallant Bloom at Belmont, but she'd been off since November. If you go back to her 2012 form, I think she fits very well here. And I was looking for a price to beat Groupie Doll because I think Groupie Doll is going to be overbet here. The other horses to look at, Judy the Beauty, Dance to Bristol. The other one that I really like here that does well at Santa Anita is Book Review. And if she runs back to her form last year, she's going to be tough to handle too. But I think Groupie Doll is very vulnerable here, and there's no way that I would use her alone in a pick four.
Started to go to Dance Card because I think she could improve in the second start off that long layoff for Kieran McLaughlin. But I ended up going to Sweet Lulu. I know the connections are really high on this one, and the test is always a tough race to win, and she won that. And now they tried to stretch her out around 2 turns, and she was no match for Close Hatches doing that. She's best around 1 turn, and I think getting drawn on the outside's a good spot, going 7 furlongs. And I think Le Peru is a good fit for her. So in this race especially, because I think she sits off the hot pace just a little bit. And Sweet Lulu is going to be the pick for me, but Dance Card I like a lot. And Judy the Beauty, I mean, the horses coming out of the TCA at Keeneland have always run well in this race. So I think Judy the Beauty is very live. And Groupie Doll certainly you got to respect. And if there's certainly reason to think she could move forward, going back on the dirt where she ran one of her best races last year out at Santa Anita. So we'll certainly wish the connections of Groupie Doll best of luck, and she ought to bring a nice price at that November sale with what she's accomplished in her career. 7th race is going to wrap up the early pick 4, and it's the Turf Sprint. And this is always kind of a crapshoot. Ended up liking Misdirection last year and won it with her. And she's back to defend that title. I don't like her as much this year. I ended up on Unbridled's Note. I like him a lot, but it's hard I couldn't single anybody in a pick 4 out of this group, but I really do like Unbridled's Note. I like horses that come back to the Breeders' Cup a second time when they didn't win it the first time, and they come back the second time. And I think Asmussen just missed in this race last year. Gave this horse a long layoff, then got a nice prep on the course at the distance in this basically the same conditions, and the horse ran second. Ought to improve off that, and I just think he's sitting on a big race, and it's just a matter if he can work out a good trip to win this. So I would probably what I would do from a wagering standpoint is key him in exactas with horses like Boat Trip, Misdirection, Cara Cortado, and I heard Ron Anderson, Rosario's agent, on a Steve Bix radio show this week, touting Capo Bastoni. And you like horses usually they're finishing in this race down the hill, and this horse is a great finisher. Never been on the turf, but Anderson said that Pletcher was trying to run him on the turf at Saratoga and then change gears and ended up going in the was it the King's Bishop and won it. So Capo Bastoni, who beat me out of a big trifecta the day when he beat Mentor Kane, I'm going to have a little bit of something in there with him, but Unbridled's Note's going to be my pick. What about you?
Well, I've got some different horses, and that just goes to show this race is wide open.
Absolutely.
Misdirection ran a great race last time and just barely got up at the wire at almost 7-1. And, he's 6 for 6 at Santa Anita on the turf course. So it's hard to leave him out. I'm going to try to beat him with Renee's Got Zip. Peter Miller is a great trainer in California, and this horse has done so well as a 4-year-old. He's 2 for 2 at Del Mar, but he ran the 2 best races of his life. And it seems that, there was no contest. He won by 5 1/4 and 4 1/4, and I saw both those races, and he could have won by 10 1/4. So I think he's coming to the race the right way. They gave him a nice little layoff. It's going to matter on the trip. Because he's not he got beat by a length and 3/4 last year, but they ran 21 and 42 and 1. So and he was right there 2 lengths off that pace. So I'm going to go with Renee's Got Zip, but I think I'll get 6-1, 7-1 because this race is wide open. And
absolutely.
Actually, yeah, and Misdirection is a good shot. Chips All In is the other horse that I don't think you mentioned, who's 4 for 5 at Santa Anita.
Yeah.
And Chips All In actually won that race that Unbridled's Note is coming out of. So I'm going to take Renee's Got Zip, but I would go very deep in the pick 4 here.
Yeah, this is it's a tough spot to really get locked in on anybody because they're going so fast, short, and 14 horses, and just a couple of turns, and it's just crazy to work out a trip. So I do tend to like horses that have run over this course before at this distance. The last race we're going to look at for this first podcast is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at 1 mile and a 16th. It's the 8th race on the card, and I think this is as wide open maybe as any race on the day, and had a really tough time coming to settle on anybody. Who did you take?
It's wide open unless the horse that I pick wins it.
Must be Havana.
I think Havana is the choice here. I looked at the outside post, the 13-14 strong mandate, and Havana drew outside, and usually that's a kiss of death. I think Havana's good enough to overcome that. And if you look at the numbers coming out of the Champagne, the maiden special weight win at 102 buyer, I think the numbers just tower over everything else in here. If he's not good enough, I think he's wide open. And Tappet Rich, Bob Baffert's horse, with only a maiden win, is good enough to win it. Mexicoma's good enough to win it. But I'm going to take Havana. I'm going to take a stand here with Havana overcoming the outside post. Also like Bondholder, won the Grade 1 last out for Doug O'Neill, the front runner. And I like the way he's moving forward as well. But I'm going to take Havana, though. I'm going to take a little bit of a stand here. So you're going to be wide open, huh?
Yeah, I am, because I'm going to take a stand against that post position. That's the reason. I mean, everything you said about Havana is certainly true. I'm just going to throw him out because of the post. And if that happens, if the post gets him, then it could be anything. And that's why I took a big swing at Medal Count for the win pick. Won his debut at 1 mile, which I think is tough to do, down at Ellis, and looked really good doing it. And then looked like Dale Romans just wanted to get a prep into him, tried to get him in the Breeders' Futurity, couldn't, ran him in the Bourbon, was supposed to be on the turf, came to the Poly, had a tough post, didn't get a very good trip, it looked like he got stopped a couple of times, and I've heard that they think this horse has a whole lot of ability long term, and I'm going to take a shot on him. Tappet Rich, I'm going to throw in there just because he was so impressive in his debut, but that is asking an awful lot. We miss Artie, didn't get a great number at Keeneland, but he just was visually very impressive, so seems to have been training well from everything I see, so I'd throw him in there too. And the more I've looked at this, the more I've got to include Mexicoma too, because I think Team Valor, as I understand it, bought him off that win at Delaware, so I'd throw him in there too. But Medal Count's going to be the pick for me in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So best of luck to everybody on your wagers. We're going to come back with another podcast that'll take a look at the late pick for the Turf, the Sprint, the Mile, and the Classic. And best of luck on Breeders' Cup Day from KeenelandSelect.com.